Supergirl, not called Woman of Tomorrow anymore. They changed it, just Supergirl. The, I want to say, fourth thing in James Gunn's new DCU, behind Creature Commandos, Superman, and Season 2 of Peacemaker. So this is significant. It is not the debut of this version of Supergirl, because obviously she was both in the post-credit scene in Superman, and the silhouette of Supergirl shows up in the now retconned finale of Peacemaker Season 1 that you can only see in the previously on in Peacemaker Season 2. Aren't comics fun? But this movie is a big deal for a lot of reasons. Number one, first solo Supergirl movie since the one from the 80s, where everybody holds a weird magic ball and goes, ooh. Nobody liked that movie. So for a lot of people, this is their first Supergirl movie. For most people, I would say. And yes, she was in The Flash, played by Sasha Calle, but that was more of an Elseworlds version of Supergirl, filling in for Flashpoint Superman. Then, obviously, Melissa Benoist played Supergirl on the CW and in lots of crossovers for a very long time. I would say she seems like, right now, the gold standard for that character. So there was a question going into this movie is, our audiences, our fans of Supergirl, going to like it? But more than that, and we're going to talk about this a lot, this specific movie seemed to be drawing inspiration from one specific comic. This is called Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. It was written by Tom King, with art by Bilquis Everly and Matthias Lopez, and it has become like a modern classic. Sure, it's not everybody's favorite book, but it got so much praise out of the gate. And it felt like, for a lot of people reading this book as it came out, like me, this was a book you could hand to a director and a producer and say, make this. This is a movie. Because the story is pretty much based off of True Grit, a classic Western revenge movie that gets remade over and over again. And the art was iconic, the kind of thing that would look amazing on the big screen. That's Bilquis Everly. Is a big part of the selling point for this book is there is not another book in comics at the time that looks like this. Definitely not from the big two publishers. And even though they dropped The Woman of Tomorrow from the name of this movie, just called Supergirl, it's clear that it is inspired almost exclusively by the book Woman of Tomorrow. The story is basically the same, all the characters are the same, although there are some tweaks to how certain characters work and how they fit into the narrative. But like Marvel does this a lot, where they'll name a movie like Age of Ultron or Civil War, right? And you watch them and you go, yeah, I guess I kind of see how they got to this title. It's similar, got the same character. Hey, here's a version of that shot from the cover of that one book. Great. But we the fans always know it's not the same thing, and we don't expect it to be. This is a little different, and that's the trouble with talking about this movie. I think on its own, just if I walked into a theater now knowing anything about Supergirl, anything about the book it's based on, anything about the new DCU and James Gunn and all that, if I watched this movie, I would say it's pretty good. It's a decent time. Nothing terribly wrong with it. Performances are fun. Action gets a little interesting. The creatures and like the spaciness of it is charming. And the relationship between Kara and Ruthie, that works. But where this becomes kind of difficult to talk about is, while I think it is a pretty decent Supergirl movie, let's say above average even for these, I think it's a pretty rough adaptation of Supergirl, Woman of Tomorrow. And because it's so easy to look at both and see the similarities, I mean, the first trailer for this movie ended with, hey, here's the comic that this is based on, go read this. And while getting people interested in comics is great, I kind of think that does a disservice to the movie, because this movie just does not look as good as the book. It is nowhere near as visually ambitious as that book. I think I and most audience members would be fine with it if the visuals they replaced it with were equally interesting, but the problem with the movie is they're just not. I don't think this movie looks terrible. Obviously, there's a ton of special effects that look great. It's pretty fun fight scenes, but this movie just has a painfully round kind of feeling to it. Also, my cat Mortimer's on my lap. He could not be on my lap for this movie because this is a movie about a dog and stuff, but he has to contribute by standing on my lap during this whole thing. But this movie just flat out does not look as good as the book, and it's an adaptation. Does it have to be 100% faithful? Not necessarily. The problem with an adaptation in that sense, though, is you get to look at it and go, hey, what did you change? What did you decide not to do, and why did you decide not to do that? And that can be plot points, that can be characters you added, took away, and it can be visuals. And I think we as a comic book movie audience have kind of got tired of movies that look like this. This was what a lot of them looked like for a while. And some still do, but for the most part, I think we've kind of graduated. At least some of the best comic book adaptations that are released. The Superman movie, Fantastic Four movie, Daredevil, I mean even Wonder Man have embraced visuals that feel, for the first time, that they're on the same level as the books. And don't get me started on Into the Spider-Verse or any of the crazy stuff going on in animation. That's all incredible. But it's really hard to talk about this movie without talking about the visuals. The same way that if you adapted Charlie and the Chocolate Factory into a movie, and it had this color palette, you'd be like, well, that's not what it is, though. That's not what's fun about it. And I get it. Movies are expensive, budgets are limited, but if you're not gonna deliver on the premise, don't do it this way. If they made a Supergirl movie with a completely original story, did not tie it to Woman of Tomorrow, I think people would still be a little bummed at how brown it is, but the expectations wouldn't have been such an issue. Yeah, the question I ask about these movies, these television shows now, is who would I recommend it to? Would I recommend this to just your average moviegoer? I would say sure, you'd probably have a good time with it. Would I recommend it to someone who's a big fan of the books? I think you'd still probably enjoy it, although I do think expectations set by the book really don't help. Would I recommend this to someone who doesn't usually watch these, not an enormous fan of superhero movies or TV shows? I would say probably not. Unless I know they're gonna like Supergirl specifically, I don't think this is the kind of crossover hit that's gonna make a big splash. And part of that's because it just feels so much like stuff that's already out there. And I've talked about this before. Kara wears a jacket that is similar in fashion to the jacket worn by Star-Lord in Guardians of the Galaxy. And some people have brought up how they kind of made her into Star-Lord. And I think that's a dumb example of that, because A, she wears the coat in the books. B, they're different looking coats. But C, there's a way more interesting example, which is the headphones. For whatever reason, Kara has a pair of vintage 80s headphones. Headphones that are reminiscent of a certain character named Star-Lord. Now, I genuinely, having watched the movie now, don't know why she has them. What they're supposed to represent, because it's such a choice for a character who did not grow up on Earth to have those and value those. So I don't blame anyone who sees this movie, sees this character who drinks and is kind of a mess, doesn't take things seriously, who dances around a lot to music they listen to from headphones from the 80s, with the messy spaceship in a movie with sets like this. And I think it's hard to not see why people would go, that's just like those Guardians of the Galaxy movies, but without the characters, the connections to the Marvel Cinematic Universe, any of that other stuff that makes this movie really fun and new. I think new is really important for audiences right now. A movie needs to feel like something they haven't seen before, otherwise why are they going? New is what gets people to the theater these days. I think we're going to get a lot of movies later this year that are going to feel new, even if they are part of franchises. The Odyssey, obviously going to feel new. I think the Spider-Man movie is doing a lot of work to make itself seem like something new, something we have not seen before. And I think Supergirl is in a tough spot, because even though it is not directed by the person who made those Guardians of the Galaxy movies, and in fact is the first project in that universe that was not written and directed by James Gunn, it still will feel like something people are familiar with. And specifically, it will feel like Guardians of the Galaxy. Now, let's talk about performances. Millie Alcock, very good. Little girl playing Ruthie, Eve Ridley, pretty good. Felt just like the Ruthie from the comics. You get a little bit of David Corenswet again here as Superman, and he's terrific. I love this version of Superman so much. I think while I did really like him in his movie, it took appearances like this that reminded me like, oh, this character really does work. You could just plop him into any of these movies and he's Superman. And it's really cool. Talking about performances I really like, David Krumholtz, I think was great as Zor-El, Kara's father. Then we have two performances that I think are fascinating. The first, Jason Momoa as Lobo. Incredibly well cast. He's doing some very strange things here. First of all, he's got a couple of accents he seems to swing between. It's a choice. Maybe that's something to do with this Lobo just feeling like he doesn't really belong anywhere, trying to put on a front. I don't know. But Jason Momoa was clearly having a lot of fun. And this is a character, unlike Supergirl, who has never been on the big screen. Yes, they were in the Krypton show, but they've never been in a movie, so they are something new. Audiences can be like, ooh, this is interesting. They're also not from the book. They're the biggest addition to this movie. But I think they work well. Honestly, I think they may work a little too well. I'm not convinced they draw focus necessarily, but there's a scene where Ruth and Lobo are talking, and I can't help but thinking when I'm watching that, oh my god, they have great chemistry. These two characters should be in a movie together. This should be about a found family that includes Kara, the orphan person from space, Ruthie, the daughter who's out for revenge with her sword, Lobo, the big giant guy who's violent and scary and weird, and then, I don't know, whatever Rocket Raccoon and Groot would be in this universe. Because having them all together is fun. I also think he looked great. Just looked perfect. I think the costuming in general for this movie was very good. That felt very faithful to the book. But then, all that falls away when we start talking about Krem of the Yellow Hills, played by Matthias Schoenaerts. This is such a baffling decision because this character is so specific in the book, and it is for reasons that I think are pretty obvious when you read it. He's supposed to seem like a guy, just some guy. Supergirl immediately underestimates him, and as they chase him, the more you find out about him, the more you're like, oh, this guy's a real problem in the books. He also just looks like a guy. There are pirates, they are kind of part of the story, but they're not these Guardians of the Galaxy Reaver style pirates. They've got a more piratey aesthetic to them. They even have a big pirate ship, which is fun. So just visually, this character doesn't look anything like the version from the comics, but it's not just that he doesn't look like the version from the comic, it's that he is over-designed in a way that is very obnoxious and doesn't fit in incredibly well in the movie. If that were it, I'd say who cares, because they also gave him one of those kind of weird, not necessarily Hans Landa, not necessarily Joker, that like weird, cavalier, kooky, and crazy villain that's so crazy he thinks killing is good, and he's kind of smart, but also kind of dumb and like cruel, and he's everything. This character is way too much. I was honestly really excited when they cast him as Shonen Hearts, because he looks a little bit like Krem. You put a beard on him, he just looks like the character of Krem. And in the movies that I've seen him in, which is that The Order movie and nothing else, I think, he plays a kind of laid-back, reserved character. Thinks he's kind of too cool for school. That's what Krem should feel like. But instead, they dropped him in a vat of Guardians of the Galaxy juice, and he came out looking like this. Is it the biggest problem with this movie? Absolutely not. I do think, though, we're kind of maybe starting to see a trend of weird, somewhat forgettable villains in the new DCU. Sure, Lex was amazing. Obviously, we all love the Engineer. We all got the Fortnite skin like I did. But, remember the bad guy from Creature Commandos? It's like the princess or something like that. Bad guy for season 2 of Peacemaker. His brother from the Nazi dimension. And now this, Krem. One of the things Marvel got really lucky with early was Loki. Now, I think we have that here with Lex. But one of the criticisms frequently leveled against Marvel, especially during Phase 2, is they would bring in these fun actors and have them play characters that just nobody cared about. Malekith is a great example. Honestly, Lee Pace's Ronan from Guardians 1 isn't that great. Darren Cross, Aldrich Killian. I don't think this is exactly the same situation, but I do think Krem fits right up there with all that. Honestly, he might be tied for my least favorite with Malekith. What am I saying? Malekith is way worse, because that character's got personality in the books, and he says none in the movie. Anyway, Krem, not good. I don't know if the performance is bad necessarily, or it was a writing thing, a direction thing. It's hard to say, but whatever it was, the character doesn't work. Like, the pacing is okay. I think this is a movie that had way too much in the trailer. It seems clear. Warner Brothers knew they had to sell this, so they showed a lot. In the first trailer, you can see scenes from all over the movie. Some in the beginning, some further in the end than you may want in a movie like this. But then as more trailers started coming in and more materials started coming out, there were some things that were a little bit surprising to me, but for the most part, I feel like I'd seen this movie in the marketing. But what are you supposed to do? You don't put Lobo in? Of course you put Lobo in the marketing. What are you supposed to do? Leave her out of the suit because that's like a late game? No, of course you have to put her in the suit. But I guess looking back, I just don't love a lot of the advertising for this movie. But in reality, my big takeaway, the big takeaway from this you should take away, is that I think this movie's pretty good. It's a solid story. It looks okay. The actors do their jobs very well. It's probably not going to change your life. If you want to see a good version of Supergirl on screen, this is it. But if you like the story, do yourself a favor and read the book, because it is gorgeous. And it is ambitious and weird. And I understand some of the differences visually can come from the perspectives that we're seeing this movie through. Like, you can make the case that we're seeing the movie through Supergirl's perspective, which is a lot more drab because she's very depressed, versus in the book, kind of seeing it through Ruthie's perspective. So space seems really fantastical, colorful, weird, sure, but it's hard not to be like, I probably would have rather seen that second thing because that thing's cool. But listen, overall, this movie is good. I have a ton of things I want to talk about. Some specifics, I'll probably do a spoiler breakdown of this video soon. And speaking of Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, it got me thinking of a video I was watching the other day. It's about Curious Archive, and it's part of the Gods and Monsters series. The video is called Flesh of the Cosmos. It reminds me of how in Guardians of the Galaxy Volume 3, Orgo Corp, for whatever reason, has this strange fleshy design to it. In this video, Flesh of the Cosmos talks about why so many space movies, and specifically space horror, is fleshy. Like, think Stranger Things or Venom. It's a weird thing to think about, but honestly, it's an interesting phenomenon in pop culture. And you can find that video, along with so many others, exclusively on this video's sponsor, Nebula. Nebula is a subscription streaming platform that I and a bunch of other YouTubers you probably already love helped to create. First thing that's important, all of our videos go up there early and ad-free. So if you want to be the first person to see one of my Nando V movies or Nando cut videos, Nebula is for you. And then there are series like Jetlag or Tom Scott's England, where they go up on Nebula a week before they go anywhere else. Then we also have Nebula exclusive series of videos, like Tom Nicholas has a series called Slow News Day. Captain Midnight has a series called Showrunners, where he looks at different people that have created television shows. The first episode is about Rod Serling in The Twilight Zone. The second episode is about Vince Gilligan in Breaking Bad. Looks at the journey of how they got to where they were and how that shaped the series they would showrun. And then Curious Archives Gods and Monster series looks at these different legendary creatures from religion and mythology and talks about how the ideas of those creatures has evolved over time and they've turned into pop culture characters. So you can find all that great stuff exclusively on Nebula. And a year of Nebula is already a steal at $60 a year. That is $5 a month. But if you go to go.nebula.tv/thenandocut, you can get Nebula for just $2.50 a month. That is $30 for the year. It's an awesome deal. Go check it out. I guarantee there is a creator you already love who's part of Nebula. And if you spend some time on Nebula, I bet you'll find your new favorite creator. After me, of course. Your second favorite creator because I'm your favorite. Don't correct me. Again, that is go.nebula.tv/thenandocut. Alright, so spoiler video will be coming soon. Until then, stay safe. I'll see you around.